Hello, everyone, and welcome to SAP Discover. The topic for today's session is Shaping the Future HR Leveraging Technology in the New Normal. Our speakers for this session are Mr. Nishit Upadhyay, SCP, Director Advisory Services, SHRM, Mr. James Thomas, Vice President, SAP Success Factors, India, Mr. Om Prakash H., Senior Director, HCM Cloud Solutions Blueprint Technologies Private Limited, Ms. Jyoti G, Director L&D, Nest Digital Engineering. Ms. Deepa Prasad, Director, Associate Director, HR, Iris Global. Mr. Srinivas Pulvai, Sales Director, Blueprint Technologies Private Limited. A detailed introduction of individual speakers will be given as and when I request them to address the audience. Before we begin the session, I would like to take you through the agenda of the session. As we begin the session, we call Mr. Nishit Upadhyay to address the keynote. Then we have SAP expert speaking on the session forward. We also have a panel discussion going ahead and a partner roundup before closing. Before we start the session, we would like to take you through the functionality of this webinar. Your participation is important all throughout the session. You will see a control panel on the right side of your screen. The orange button on top right side of your screen can be used to expand and collapse the control panel. The staff will manage the Q&A functionality. If you have any questions for our speakers, please enter the same in the questions window on your control panel. Your queries will be answered at the end of the session. We have everyone on mute throughout the session to avoid any audio disturbances that may distract users from listening in to the webinar. And now call upon Mr. Nishit Upadhyay, our first speaker. Mr. Nishit Upadhyay, he leads
Thank you.
a growing. Allow me to give a short introduction about you, sir. Mr. Nishit Upadhyay. Mr. Nishit Upadhyay, he leads a growing advisory practice focused on enabling clients realize business goals through the better alignment of people practices. He is focused on achieving business growth through effective execution of clients' consulting mandates for the whole practice in domains such as vision, values cascade, organization structure, performance management system, and other HR process designs. Learning content and delivering organization-wide behavior change programs, and core research engagement. In addition, he is a spokesperson of the Society on knowledge-related issues in India. He lends his voice to the views of society in national print and television media on wide-ranging issues related to development in HR and employment space. Mr. Nishit, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for SAP for inviting me over to speak with this wonderful audience here. And thank you so very much for joining in to listen to our panel too. We are in interesting times, of course. And what I'm going to do is take the next 5 odd minutes to sort of articulate how HR and organizations are sort of responding to this scenario. Fundamentally, what's changed, right? How have organizations adapted? How do we, as SHRM, as the world's largest membership-based human resources body, and perhaps one of the most authoritative voice on HR, view some of these changes, and then sort of open it up for discussion with this wonderful panel out here, right? And of course, throughout this journey of navigating such turbulent waters, the strongest sales has of course been technology for most of the organizations, with an emphasis on how technology has sort of supported us in navigating this journey. Without further ado, I'll sort of start off with a short walkthrough of my thoughts more than anything else, right? This is a quick introduction about SHRM and what we do. As you can see, globally we have about 300,000 members. Our purpose is to elevate the HR profession, and our vision is to build a world of work that sort of works for all, right? So that's you can read a lot more about it at shrm.org. So I'll quickly move on from that side. So what's changed for organizations? Managing the people function in organizations has been all about tracking employee experiences, right? And making sure that employees have a great experience, right? In their stint within organizations, right from entry to exit, right? So fundamentally, what's changed in a large sample study which was done by Josh Bersin, and which continues to be there on his site for anyone wanting to find out a lot more. We distinctly saw a clear division in expectations on employee experience coming out before COVID hit us, and what do employees expect right now, right? Whereas earlier it was a lot more about employees looking for recognition, a great place to work in terms of free food, employee assistance, pets at work, so on and so forth. The experience expectation has taken a 360 change, and now it's solely focused on the first two rungs of Maslow's needs hierarchy, which is firmly around physiological safety and belongingness needs, right? And this is particularly interesting to see because all this is happening at the backdrop of employee engagement as numbers shooting through the roof, right? Across the world, despite the tough circumstances that organizations are going through, we've actually seen employee engagement numbers change completely, right? And change completely in a positive direction. So from an employee experience standpoint, employees are really looking at, of course, their safety and psychological concerns being addressed, but also, interestingly enough, more in terms of clarity. So clarity related to, for example, managing my performance, right? How is my now that my work has fundamentally changed, how will that performance get tracked over a period of time, right? How will I get supported as I continue to work from home, right? My managers should be behaving differently. So how is the organization ensuring that things like that happen, right? So the employee experience has taken a 360-degree change, and that's what HR is focusing on and trying to get right. So whereas earlier it was a lot more about more self-actualization, esteem needs, so on and so forth, now it's essentially ensuring that some of the safety, physiological as well as belonging needs getting addressed. The interesting part is, I think, belongingness, and perhaps that's also one of the reasons why employee engagement numbers are sort of going off the roof, and more people are getting engaged. So what's really the shift? If I break it down into dimensions of employee experience, whereas the focus was earlier around productivity and engagement, now the shift has essentially happened to managing cases, diagnosis, and essentially responding back to that. Whereas earlier the focus was essentially on moments, right? Managing major talent transitions. How is onboarding happening? How are promotions happening, so on and so forth. But now it's essentially shifted to something which is much more immediate, right? How do I react to scenarios? What process and systems have I built in so that employees know that my organization will take care of me in case something has happened, right? So experiences are being designed in more real time, right? In terms of where are some of these experiences coming in, whereas earlier it was more global, now it's essentially local, which has essentially taken precedence, because we all know that different locations have different norms in terms of employees returning back to work, so on and so forth. Some locations have offices open, and some organizations have offices open. Others essentially are still working from home, so on and so forth. So we have local really driving the whole agenda, right? And the HR process as a result has become very cross domain, right? Rather than being domain centric in terms of saying that talent acquisition will only do talent acquisition, talent management will only do talent management, so on and so forth. And it's become much more responsive and cross domain. So you have people across the board helping up in organization projects, so on and so forth. So these are the clear shifts that we see. And of course, the pace has become much more real time, right? As we look at the whole landscape, right, we see that HR should really be addressing three types of employee work groups as they come up, right? And these are the three types of work groups which are shaping up. You have one set of employees who are absolutely going to be frontline workers, right? People who have to turn up at work, right? Organizations need to deal with them differently. There's one set of remote workers who can still perhaps come to offices sometimes, but don't necessarily need to, right? But would be very comfortable working from home, right? They really don't need to turn up at a common place. And then you have where most of us would perhaps fall in the services sector at least, which are the composite set of workers, right? So essentially ensuring that all of these work groups get dealt with from a fairness and equity standpoint is going to be crucial, to the organization's role and thereby HR's role in ensuring that happens, right? So these are the three distinct work groups that we are looking at, who would have distinct experiences at the workspace, and therefore HR should be catering to them in a manner which addresses all of their concerns with fairness and equity. To be able to do that, we've sort of put together this entire set of things that HR needs to have in place, and I won't sort of bore you with all the details, but broadly, if I were to touch through, we would want to say that one, HR needs to plan that we have an optimal amount of workspace back at offices. We have enabling policies, including BCP plans, etc., in place. Employee safety and psychological needs need to get addressed through social distancing norms. Clarity on productivity is something which needs to be given out, and employees need to have that in place. And of course, health and safety is at the core, and that's what HR would need to continue to address, right? Throughout this, consistent and continuous communication, making sure that all our policies, practices are communicated. Leadership has a constant line of sight and visibility, talking about what is it that they're doing is something which needs to get addressed. And that's why we've seen some best-in-class organizations also deal very effectively with in this crisis using technology tools, right? What's going to be crucial in all of this is, of course, the manager, the manager that the person works with, and enabling that manager to deal with the set of work groups differently, ensuring that he has enough skills as well as insights passed on terms of how do you manage working effectively, how do you manage remote teams, and of course the right technology in place to be able to deal with the distributed workforce at hand. So that's the broad landscape of work and the role of HR that we are seeing as having changed over a period of time, right? I'd be happy to discuss more specific cases as well as we go ahead in this interesting discussion. But for the moment, handing this back to you, James, who would and James, I think you will be talking more about the use of technology and particularly SAP helping organizations navigate through this.
Thank you, Mr. Nishit. Before calling on to Mr. James, I would like to give a quick introduction about him.
Thank you.
And now welcome Mr. James, a seasoned senior management sales and business leader with more than 25 years of management and sales leadership. Strategy and Business Development Alliance, and Channel experiencing in creating growing sustainable new businesses in emerging markets in areas such as Asia Pacific, more specific in India. Combines a rich blend of entrepreneurial flair and experience with the process-driven execution focus on large global corporations to establish and build sustainable, profitable businesses. One of his strengths lies in making a difference with every pursuit, a positive change to business and society, with a passion to make startup initiatives successful and to build and create high performance teams. A quick reminder to all our attendees, if you have any questions for our speakers, please enter the same in the questions window. Mr. James, over to you.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you for that kind introduction, quite flattering. Thank you, Nishit. I think it was a wonderful talk from you in terms of the changing dimensions on the HR front and what today's organizations are faced with. Just to check, is my screen visible to the audience?
Yes, Mr. James.
Thank you. Welcome, audience. Over the next 5 to 10 minutes, I would like to just share a few perspectives in relation to what Nishit shared, as well as how technology is embracing this crisis, and how do we, as employees, as people working for organizations, how do we really emerge stronger? So there is no denying the fact that this is a black swan event, possibly that we have encountered the COVID crisis, maybe one of those in a century. When you look back over the last 15, 20 odd years, 25 odd years, and look at some of those crises, whether it was the emerging market currency crisis of the late 90s, or the dot-com crash, or the subprime crisis, which most of us may be aware of in the 2008-9 time frame, and now COVID, the contraction of global economy and across countries is absolutely unprecedented. Now, what does that mean? While the contraction and the directions that are happening to each industry sector is quite unprecedented, there are sectors, there are organizations, and there are teams, there are individual people who are really braving this and emerging stronger. If you look at how technology and the professional services industry is looking at it, one of the key industries from India, I have to really acknowledge Blueprint, who have facilitated this platform, who are an integral part of this ecosystem in trying to deliver technology to the customers. There are panelists in Deepa and who have looked at embracing these technologies. And if you look at some of the stalwarts of the industry, how they are viewing this, they clearly feel that there is a huge opportunity out there, that across industries, there is a repurposing of business models, the very aspects of business continuity is getting radically redefined. From business continuity maybe being an essential service to pretty much the entire organization looking at business continuity, or aspects like security, cloud. I think Nishit mentioned softer aspects like psychological safety, wellness, mental health, well-being. So there is a whole lot of hard and soft factors which are radically getting redefined, and in all this, these industry leaders feel there are clearly green shoots, and there's an opportunity to embrace for each employee, each employer, and for organizations if they really want to re-emerge. And if you look at today's user expectations, COVID or pre-COVID, there is a fundamental shift that's happening in the way the entire workplace is radically redefining itself. The way we live and the impact that it is having on our lives today is also impacting the way we work and also the way we want to work. So the way we play today has changed. The way we shop today has changed. The way we watch things today have changed. And the way we talk or interact has also changed. Now, what does that mean in terms of employee engagement, and how does technology embrace this? So employee engagement is a often stated term, but in these times or in the recent times, as the workplace of the future and the people themselves as employees have been radically redefining how organizational performance, how customer engagement, how customer experiences can be enhanced, how do we raise the bar? And today, the direct correlation between employee engagement and an organization's performance has become extremely profound, no matter which study you look at, how you slice this. So when you look at sales, when you look at profitability, when you look at productivity, when you look at customer metrics, when you look at what's the quality of the tasks and activities that we do, it's all going northwards, with significant impact in terms of how employee engagement is radically redefining these aspects for the organization. When you look at aspects like absenteeism, turnover, shrinkage, safety concerns, there is a clear direction of all these things going southwards. So what we are seeing is, while this is an unprecedented event, still employee engagement is at the heart of how we transform the current dimension. And employee engagement, engaged employees also shift your customer engagements and customer experiences dramatically as well. Just to take a minute in terms of how the hierarchy of employee needs move, when you look at engagement, today it is no longer just satisfied employees. It is no longer just engaged employees. Organizations are really looking at driving volition into the employees of how do you really inspire employees for them to be really having a purpose with the organization that they serve. How do they drive a larger narrative of working with a purpose, possibly with some social objectives, and how do you really go through that process? From a technology standpoint, what we are trying to see is how do technology platforms come in to understand this pulse on the levels of the employee engagement that an organization is at. Is it at a satisfied level, engaged level, or are we truly an inspired culture? How do we communicate? Are there today, as I said, communication is changing, how we talk is changing, and how do we really open up honest communication with our employees? Can we really look at technology and tools and mechanisms to really embrace us for those communication to be seamless, for the communication to be personalized, and change it in that fashion? The question of efficiency, productivity, are we really engaging in a way that it is wholesome? The aspects of diversity, inclusion, going local while being global, or while merging the aspects of global and local considerations in terms of optimizing resources, increasing productivity. There are significant aspects of technology that is embracing. Empowering the lines. How do you really shift this aspect on command and control leadership or command and control organization culture to a culture of trust and transparency, to a culture of empowerment of managers and employees for them to really engage in this inspired culture? And obviously, skills are being radically redefined. So how do you really reskill? How do you move into a frictionless learning? And how do you really get adapted on learning? And what is SAP doing? What is the sectors doing? What are some of the technological interventions or process interventions that we are trying? How are we enabling partners like Blueprint to come with us in this journey to make this difference to organizations and to the community at large? So the first thing is to look at processes in this direction and really shift from individual processes to a more seamless end-to-end employee experience, and a view to employees in terms of how we can really empower them to make insightful decisions, how we can enable them on their daily life, and we can make a difference in the way they engage. The second is the aspect of learning, knowledge sharing, collaboration. The entire digital platforms are today geared to facilitate these virtual collaboration, these shared learning. How do we really provide those opportunities for employees to be really adaptive and fluid in the way they learn, evolve in their careers, evolve in their own growth, and how do they contribute? How they contribute to the organization and to the larger community and customers that they serve. Obviously, in all this, we need to also understand employees. So, our options for us to really listening. Are we creating a listening culture in the organization, and how does technology really embrace it? So, just to sum it up as a final thought, technology by itself, we lay a lot of emphasis that a digital tool can come in, a digital platform can come in, and we can create great experiences. But there is also a psychology that's emerging. I mean, this particular current unprecedented situation has called for several softer dimensions of empathy, wellness, safety, as Nish has highlighted, that's coming into play to really make employees think, what should the day be like for me? So between a great experience facilitated by a technology and a great day by the psychology of a human being lies the integral part of the design on how are we really driving the seamless employee experiences of today. That's where I would like to sum up. Really appreciate this time. And back to you, Pooja.
So James, moving on to our next section, which is the panel discussion. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce everybody to our panel speakers. Ms. Jyoti. Ms. Jyoti is currently working as a director with L&D Nest Digital Engineering. With over 19 years of experience in shaping learning for global and multicultural exposure across IT industries, she has a rich experience in lending and managing learning solutions globally with a customer-centric focus to drive business growth. She is honored as Asia's most innovative training and development leader. We also have Ms. Deepa. Ms. Deepa Prasad is the Associate Director, HR at Aries Global. She is responsible for HR, BP, and operations in her previous roles with increasing scope and responsibility with well-known companies. She has participated in business-critical and transformative initiatives to keep up pace with the changing environment to stay relevant. With strong communication skills and analytical collaboration, she has led teams successfully in a highly dynamic and challenging environment to deliver the best results. We also have Mr. Om Prakash. Mr. Om Prakash, HCM Cloud Solutions, Blueprint Technologies Private Limited, heads the Global Delivery Director for Cloud Solutions. He brings over 20 years of experience in IT and proven successful track record in SAP Cloud Solutions. His rich experience includes managing delivery for large complex SAP IT landscapes across several global enterprises and Fortune 500 companies. We also have Mr. Nishit, who will be joining us in the panelists. Handing over to Mr. Srinivas Pulvai.
Thank you, Pooja. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome to the panelists and welcome to the audience. So I'm Srini, and I am director at Blueprint Technologies, and I manage sales at Blueprint Technologies. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to be the moderator for the panel discussion. And I think it was quite interesting opening session by you, Nishit. Really, it's like an insight for me to say that how the employee expectations have changed, right? I mean to say it's moved from recognitions to belongingness. I think that's very critical. And now in this current pandemic situations, as we accept it as new normal, we all have started living with what is a reality today. And then even a lot of organizations have started coming back to work, right? Employees have started coming back to work. And I'm sure in your role as advisory services, you would be interacting with a lot of customers, and I'm sure a lot of customers must be reaching out to you saying that how we as an organization should redesign or think about our workplaces, right? So just wanted to hear from you, or can you please share your perspective about what are you seeing in terms of future of workplaces, right? How people or organizations are thinking about the future workplaces, how would it would look like, and do you think that trend would continue for some more years? Maybe just wanted to hear few perspectives from you. And then also from professional services industry standpoint of view, we have seen that a lot of organizations have already spent a lot of investment on spaces, right? I mean to say a lot of real estate space has been taken up. So do you see any of those changes coming up when organizations are thinking about the future of workplaces? No, I can't hear you. Maybe it's only with me or with everyone, not sure.
Yeah, we do. I think we have to unmute.
Yes. So I think interesting conversation. I was very fascinated. Before I answer the question, Srinivas, that you put across to me, I was quite fascinated by James' last slide, where for employees, I think what makes it all come together is not just the technology, but technology plus psychology, redesigning the workday and making that experience complete. Right. So. And that was quite telling. I think that's the fact that both needed, because most organizations tend to focus more on one or the other without having adequate amounts of both, which is perhaps needed. Srinivas, coming to the question that you posed at me, and as I was just reflecting on this, I realized, we don't have the answer to that as yet, right? And interestingly, at SHRM, as we are trying to understand the trends that would shape the organization of the future, we realize that there's a critical gap area right now, and currently we are in the mode in the midst of actually a research study where we reached out to hundreds of organizations, across India, just trying to understand what the landscape of what the emerging landscape will look like in terms of not just the organization structure, which is of course changing, right? Because because physically, if you look at it, there are a number of organizations which have come on press saying that, look, we don't need physical offices anymore. There are a number of organizations who only have manufacturing sites, who've done away with their corporate headquarters, regional headquarters, so on and so forth, right? Decision making is another aspect which has fundamentally changed. The old style way of running organizations of top down, and percolating some of those decisions to locations, regions, so on and so forth, has absolutely been hit out of the window. And organizations it's very, very clear right now that organizations who would do well are the set of organizations who are nimble, who are able to empower smaller teams to sort of take some of these decisions, and quickly respond to changing marketplace needs, because and the needs of the marketplace have been definitely changing very, very frequently. The third thing that I would like to talk about, and so far I've touched about the structure, decision making, and perhaps the most important part that needs to, or the most important design consideration that organizations need to come in mind as they sort of look at the organization of the future, is the kind of culture. Because if you had a culture historically where thinking was only something which resided with top management, and top management was responsible for designing the traditional strategy and cascading it down, right, and getting execution done from the regions, locations, whatever, that culture and way of working is absolutely not going to happen. So fundamentally, how do you rejig the whole organization and change the culture so that people start feeling more empowered and are enabled to think on their feet, challenge each other, question each other, and do what's right for their respective location and region, right? These three things to my mind are going to be the top three drivers which will determine how the organization of the future will look like, right? But yeah, a definite answer in terms of what that change has been. We're still right in the midst of it to be able to come up with a specific answer to that question.
Sure. Thanks, Nishit. And Nishit, you were also mentioning that you're trying to do some research with some organizations. So is that research something that will be available on SHRM website, or will the audience be able to access that research in the due course? Because I think every one of us in this call or the webinar would be keen to know how it would be shaping up.
No, absolutely. So in fact, that study is live right now. We will be presenting an interim, understanding or emerging trends from that study in our conference, which is coming up next week. There's a SHRM Edge conference. But happy to share the link, with you on this right now, so that people who are interested in participating in this study, can log in, go through. Because what we're trying to do as an industry body is fundamentally try and understand how are different organizations across different industries, locations responding to this change, and therefore determine some of this trend. So happy to share it with the audience, and get them to participate. Thanks for asking that, Srinivas.
Sure. Thanks, Nishit. And one of the points that you were also talking about is the culture, right? So that is taking me to a leading question to Jyoti, to you. So at least in professional services industries, or when it is related to ITS services industries, work from home as a culture has been there in place already, right? And that's primarily to facilitate employees to have that work-life balance. Okay. And now with this current situation that we are in, so work and life are in one single room for us, right? We are always with family, we are always with work, and there is no boundary now between work and life, so it's completely blurred out. So in this context, what do you think? Because James was also saying that employee engagement is directly related to the employee productivity, right? So what measures or what initiatives have you or your organization have been taking in terms of making sure that the employee productivity remains the same? At the same time, they are also not stressed out, because I'm sure most of us start our calls at 8 in the morning and the calls go continuously, right? So just wanted to hear from you
till midnight.
Yeah, absolutely. So just wanted to hear from you in terms of your perspectives or what you are seeing in the market or in your organization.
Yes, actually, Nishit, as I already wrapped it up in this presentation covering what organization has taken measure. But from Nest, what we did was, even before the lockdown hit India, right, we were working from home, and management had a clear direction for us to focus on employees first and employee well-being. And we, being the face of the HR, right, we had to be more agile, quick in adapting, and bringing that facility for employees. So what we did was complete dipstick of employee life cycle, and that is from the organization point of view as well as from employee point of view. And when we did that, we were able to sense that there was really employee burnout was definite there because of COVID, working from home, lockdown and whatnot. Okay. And from our point of view, what we took measure was the constant communication, like Nishit put that, right? Communication. We did that constantly, giving assurance to people that our priority is employee first. And leaders went to the extent even talking to the clients, telling the situation and making it more reasonable for their demands. And interesting part was we called out COVID warriors internally also, who can enable employees to work on their daily routines. It has to be without impacting their productivity. It could be Wi-Fi connection, it could be they need a table properly or a chair is needed. Whatever the strain they were going through, the COVID warriors were acting on it. And managers were a key resources here, because we put a immediate KRAs for them to have a constant connect with employees to know their well-being. Okay. And in the process, we also rolled out some employee surveys to know their grievances and concerns is what they had, and we brought that into action like a war footing. Okay, and from employee point, while technology, like we are in the ITS industry, technology was taking care of all the back end operations related connecting and all that, but attention was from HR point of view is to engage with them, giving that human connect, understanding and the pain points, and easing the transition. What we did. Yes, engagement was very high from HR point. Virtual leadership connect, coffee with boss, lunch connects, fun activities were there like Antakshari, wellness related, mindfulness, yoga, laughter sessions. Lot of things were there, and new joinees. We had a robust hiring during pandemic, and new joinee connect with Buddy, and even specific celebrations also we rolled out, like Father's Day, Friendship Day, women related events, and whole of our virtual R&R facility went virtual, including digital certification. And policies were definitely tweaked in context to COVID. From Government of India, directions also were there, starting from giving a offer letter to PF to NPS to flexible benefit package, because people did not have Wi-Fi connection, internet connection. Do they need to spend from their pocket? No. Nest took charge there to sponsor for all of that. Health was a focus. Health, they took the lead. Books and periodical subscriptions went high. So these were all, we bundled it in the COVID time, and we said these are the facility you have, take care of it. And of course, a lot of paper saving went because of going digital, and focus was mostly on the human touch in this pandemic, right? And that was a complete call for action for us from HR point of view, that human connect, while technology helping us in other things.
Absolutely. I can just imagine how difficult it would be to be in touch with employees, and that too virtually. And I'm sure you would have leveraged all your social collaboration tools to make that happen. And one interesting point that you brought up was Nest as an organization has been hiring during this pandemic. So with that point of hiring, maybe I will take my next question to Deepa, to you. And typically, employee experience is one of a critical element in the entire talent life cycle management, right? From the moment they step in to the moment they step out, employee experience is important. And they always say the first impression makes a lot of difference. And during this time, I'm sure the traditional or the erstwhile of onboarding, like meeting and greeting employees and say, hi, welcome to the organization, is all lost now, right? So it's all virtual. So how did Aries Global manage this virtual onboarding experience, and any tools were used or technology was leveraged for this? So how was your entire onboarding experience that Aries Global has managed during this pandemic?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. Thank you, Srinivas, and thank you for inviting me here. Very insightful session, and some great information from Nishit and James. So, well, I think we were a little ahead in the game, and we had kind of embarked on the digitization of most of our processes in early, as in 2019 itself. And as an organization, when we were hit by this, situation, and we were posed by COVID-19, we really had to think of how do we seamlessly transition most of our HR processes to online, and to also manage some of our, recruitment wouldn't stop, your hiring wouldn't stop, your onboarding wouldn't stop. So how do you give them that experience, right? That was the paramount, and we pretty much managed it well, and we are continuing to do so, in this journey. So our entire life cycle management of an employee is not being hampered because of the implementation of the tools that we currently have in the organization, right? So be it our performance management, right, or even the onboarding experience has been great. We've been able to hire a lot of talent into the organization, right? So these are all because of the early adoption of technology that has helped us to proactively pivot, our, ourselves into the new norm effectively and in a timely manner to kind of help the business outcomes, right, or to even support the business outcomes. These are difficult times. I mean, all of us are looking forward for that touch and feel is not there, right? I can't really meet anybody in person, but nonetheless, we have really tried our best with our collaborative tools, with implementation of tools like SuccessFactors. And another thing that we definitely leveraged is we've been talking about well-being of our employees and colleagues and our people, right? And it's kind of it's very it's paramount and one of the focus area in most of the organizations, right? And we were able to quickly adapt to that because of the tool that we have. We were able to launch an orientation session of work from home and also some of the do's and don'ts of COVID, right, through using through our LMS module, which was really received well by our colleagues. Like Jyoti mentioned, we also looked at some policies. We looked at some few benefits that we were talking about. So it, overall, I think the digitization of the HR systems processes has really helped us during this pandemic to ensure that there is continuity, there is no impact on the business, there is no impact. Of course, I wouldn't say that we have been able to successfully say that we have given that experience to each one of them. But yes, to a large extent, we've been able to manage that and provide that experience. I've also been talking to some of my industry friends as what are some of the practices. They pretty much wherever they're digitized, then it's kind of easy for them. They're just moving to the new norm very quickly. But some of them are still struggling to get there by paper, pen kind of process that still have not moved to digital. So yeah, so that's pretty much for mine how we have managed here, Srini.
Sure. That also maybe I'll just ask you one more follow-up question on this. So you're known for your transformation initiatives in your previous organization and current organization, and Aries Global is also one of the recent customers who have gone live on SuccessFactors. So is there something that you want to share with us or the audience in terms of what went well, or how are you reaping benefits using SuccessFactors, or how has been your experience with it?
Sure. So personally, I'm a great believer of technology and integration of that into HR in my last 20 years of experience, I would say. So we continue to change, and that's the only constant thing that we've been looking forward for, right? Today, the way we operate, how we look at ourselves, right, and how the industry is moving, there is a phenomenal change, and the pace is unbelievable, right? And today, even the workforce expectations are very different. We've been hearing from our colleagues, from various other industry friends, right, in terms of how diverse it is. Most of them are looking for mobile, technology enablement, right? So with that being said, we're also working with in a generation where we have various we're working side by side with a lot of different generation, right? And we are also trying to bring that expectation all together in a workplace, right? Today I have millennials, I have several others who are working from different generations. So for me to bring them all together is kind of imperative. So somewhere the implementation of such tools is really helpful, and we've been able to leverage this effectively in our hiring, in our performance management. I think in our conversation we definitely talked about I think James and Nishit, one of them talked about how my performance is getting evaluated today during this time, during this pandemic, because it's very important. I am not in front of my boss or manager. How will they see my work, right? So that's a bit of anxiety that some of them are going through. But with the implementation of some of these tools, has really helped us to set those expectations right. And we have been, seamlessly looking at these, helping our colleagues to prioritize their work. And it has also helped us to make some decisions with data, right? So, this is how I'm looking at it with the implementation of SuccessFactor helping the organization, right? We're not in any situation where we have any kind of ambiguity. We don't, in terms of data or in terms of transparency, right? So therefore, this is a continuous journey, and we have kind of embarked on it, and perhaps this is going to be the new norm, and we'll have to accept it. And implementation of SuccessFactor has helped us achieve this in the organization today. So I'm just going to say that, right, that at this point in time, we are collaboratively winning the COVID-19, right? So.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great point. And Om, I do have one question for you, but I'll just hold it for now because I got one interesting thought when Deepa said change is constant, right? So Jyoti, I'll put back a question to you. And you are honored with most innovative talent and development leader. So with talent and reskilling and upskilling being talked about, jargons or the facts of the industry, and it has been a top priority for organizations over the last 2 years. And with this new normal, do you also see any change in new ways of learning, new normal way of learning? Would you want to share what you have been doing with technology or some initiatives that are being brought about in learning and the talent development area?
Oh, sure. I should say loads and really exhausted. I'll keep it crisp as much as possible. Definitely, this was on a C-suite agenda about learning and how to upskill people, cross skill, and even parallel skill. And this was at a board level, okay? And as a L&D function, our call was to understand what is critical on the business table and what is the kind of a learning experience we want to give for employees. So, we are looking at the outcome and we are looking at the experience. And in the whole process, we want to engage with the employees and not make them screen fatigue because they're already so much on the screen, right? We need to be mindful about that also. What we did quickly was, with the tool what we have, we did an orientation to all, saying that digitization will stay. You like it or not, you have to adapt to it. And don't ask for a traditional classroom method and all of that. It would be a virtual online learning. Get adapted to it quickly because learning in the flow of their work should happen. That is what we engaged with employees on the first most thing. And what we did was, of course, our mandatory compliance program, domain related, everything is online through our LMS, but we launched Learn from Home initiatives, which is related to business productivity and focused to COVID related. Okay. And Q1, we also launched end of Q1, I would say March, especially it was such a crucial time, we launched a leadership development program. And everyone were wondering, we did a virtual launch, virtual assessment, virtual dev journey has kickstarted with a mobile app based learning, bite-sized learning. We are pushing it. It's a 3-month long engagement. We just completed one batch. Second batch has already kicked off. So continuity on the learning is there. Of course, SAP SuccessFactor has supported us, giving us gamut of courses which helped, just in time learning, like corona preparedness, mindfulness, managing remote team. Those are the key courses which they offer to us on a free basis. Okay, we plugged that, we pushed it to employees to make benefit of it. And we have loads of internal trainers, okay, and we have to train them now, not in the classroom way, but online learning, online training, get applied to the tool, Zoom, how to use the breakout room, how to use the Mentimeter, a lot of jazz while you are facilitating. That was one thing. And one more interesting thing what we did was crowdsourcing of the content which was there internally, which was safe in their inbox. That came out to us, and it's like it's a Pandora which has opened to us, and now we want to convert that into a SCORM compliant, and that will go as a e-learning. So it's a one-stop solution for our learning management system, and through SuccessFactor, which we are supporting our employees in the learning journey. But then Srini, if I have a minute, I want to talk about some tips which has helped me. Like, you know, James was talking about black swans, right? We have to be cautious about black swans, which are always unexpected. It could be COVID, it could be tsunami, it could be heavy rains, which is happening in North India, right? The change is going to happen, it is going to impact. How are you prepared for it? Are you ready to take such risks? And, you know, have you put a business continuity plan? Definitely you have a ISO 9001 controls, but it is not just for the records, but it has to get into action, guys. So that's when it will make a result. And don't, you know, try to play your cards which you have already played for 2019 or whatever legacy, right? And that will not going to make you a win. It will get you into a bad decision, because start believing the future is already there now. And my last tip, you know, it's time now, because Nishit brought in a lot of things pre-COVID and post-COVID and all that. This is the time now to restart everything from scratch. Everything. So reboot, redesign, repurpose, everything what you're doing, and re-energize, because the future has already arrived, guys. So get ready. There is no choice for you. And digitization has hit us like a steroid, and we have to take a plunge. No choice and no way there. Thank you. So these are the things we are doing, Srini.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great insight, Jyoti. And again, I like this point saying digitization is a steroid. So we'll go to the steroid man, Om. So you have a credit of doing 50 successful SuccessFactors implementations, right? And then in this pandemic, some businesses have slowed down, some businesses have picked up. But do you see any CHRO initiatives or investments taking place in the HXM space in terms of investing in tools, technologies? So what's your opinion? What's your take? What are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, well, Ronnie, I think, Srini, what I see in the current trend, like initially the James, and Jyoti and Deepa, everyone spoke about the importance of technology, right? Because the COVID has brought us, or I could say that it has shown us the importance of employee experience or employee engagement, right? That's what we have seen in many places, including. Surprisingly is even starting from startup, right? 100+ employees itself, they wanted to bring their employees into some form of technology. So that's why we could see a lot of momentum now in terms of technology perspective, either in terms of learning L&D, or bringing a skill content into my learning experiences, or various other digital onboarding to onboard all my employees, and also on various aspects like R&R. Rewards and recognition became a most critical point for every CHROs, right? Because they have to retain their employees in this situation. That's why it's foremost important for every CHROs to keep their because Deepa also talking about the millennials, how to manage my millennials, or we should have a human touch against every employee, between manager and employee as well. How technology can help on all these aspects. That's why we could actually, I could say, we are proud to say that we are the steroid booster also. When Jyoti was talking about the steroids, right? We could happily say that we are the steroid booster, which helps the organization, helping on all these aspects, including whatever aspect you say, like employee experience using Qualtrics, or your digital signature. Especially these days, nobody is going to office, right? At the same time, we have to roll out all our offer letters, or the various POs, or whatever you generate to the employee, which requires a digital signature as well. So that's why we could see a lot of momentum in the IT technology as well. I could say it's not a new normal, it has become a normal now. We can't say that now. If you go back and say, ask employee, hey, still you are going to office, it becomes, because they're wondering like, why are you still going to office? Because all of them are saying work from home, why still going to office, right? So that way it has become a normal these days, rather than saying a new normal.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember the time when I was working from home, the neighbors would say, oh, so lucky you're working from home. Now people are asking, are you going to office? You're so lucky. So that's how the trends have changed. Yeah.
Correct.
And
Srini, I just want to add for what Om was telling. Even affirmation, attestation from employees are gone digital. compliance related working from home policy, all we are doing through success factors. So it's that simple and engaging what we are working on.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
and
paperless. Yeah, I just want to add a point. Yes, even from a compliance perspective, because Jyoti, as you rightly said, we all have certifications, ISO and all of that. But yes, sometimes here again compliance comes into play, and one of the areas that because of digitization we've been able to manage all of those things very effectively, right? And the other day I was talking to a friend of mine, and very jokingly said earlier we were making work from home policy. Now we have to probably think of work back to office policy, right? So that's the situation that we are in today. So we are trying to draw policies back to work, or some sort like that, where we were earlier looking at work from home policies. So.
Absolutely, it reminds me of go back to school after your summer vacations.
Oh yeah, they also probably have to write some norms.
Absolutely, I still remember those Bata showroom ads. So similarly, even they may start, it's time to go back to your office or buy shoes now. So
yeah.
Okay. So I think we are on top of the hour, and in fact we have exceeded a little bit. So what I would do is I would say thank you to the panelists, and thanks for all your wonderful insights. And before we end the session, maybe I'll just take 2 minutes to just summarize who we are as Blueprint Technologies. What do we do? Maybe I would not present any slides, but maybe I'll just share what we do in Blueprint Technologies. So we are SAP Gold Partners. We are in the business of providing workforce transformation solutions, and we have been here in this business for the last 10 years. And we do only SAP. We live, breathe only SAP, and we work across SAP solutions, be it SuccessFactors, be it Concur, be it customer experience, analytics, S4HANA. We are on SAP solutions, but we are known in the market as workforce transformation partners, and we work on Kronos and SAP SuccessFactors, only partner in India who have experience and capability on Kronos and SAP SuccessFactors. And we have presence globally. We are in India, Middle East, then in US, and we are today 190 plus employees, and we are trying to look for those 10 employees so that we can reach that magic number of 200. And we are quite excited and happy that we are helping our clients in these tough times to help them reach their business goals. And with that, maybe I'll just say thank you to everyone. And back to you, Pooja.